We're kicking off with WWE, who will head to Vancouver next month for Survivor Series, which among other things will mark 1 year since CM Punk's stunning return to the company. As one of the big four, Survivor Series is expected to feature CM Punk, and fans are curious about what the best in the world will do next month. While speaking during the WrestlePurist Raw review, Ibu reported that CM Punk is set to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. This is huge news, albeit news we reported 3 weeks ago, as WWE has had plans for Gunther vs. Punk as the top feud on Raw for quite some time. CM Punk vs. Gunther would certainly make for a program fitting of Survivor Series, and Punk said on the post-Bash in Berlin Raw that he had his eyes on the Red Brand's top title. It remains to be seen how the company will book their feud before their match, as fans are already incredibly excited for what's in store when these two top names clash in the ring. Do you think Punk vs. Gunther will live up to or even surpass expectations? Is it too soon for Punk to win the title at the expense of the Ring General? Let us know down below. Last night, WWE came to Manchester, England for its latest stop on its tour of the UK and Ireland, and fans in the Co-op Arena saw a very different side to Gunther. In his World Heavyweight title defense, Gunther took on Chad Gable, and despite being the top heel on Raw, Gunther wrestled as a babyface, and the crowd got behind him. Interestingly, this match wasn't the original plan, as the original card called for Gunther to take on Kofi Kingston, a babyface, in a street fight, but plans were clearly changed. While Gunther was a face at this show, he'll remain a fully fledged heel in his feud with Punk, as this surprising turn was just for the fans in Manchester this week. As we previously reported, Brock Lesnar was referenced twice on this week's Raw, with Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins mentioning their past conflicts with the Beast. Lesnar was pulled from WWE plans early this year due to being tied to Janelle Grant's lawsuit, nixing a match with Dominic Mysterio at Elimination Chamber and a match with Gunther at WrestleMania. Nonetheless, Paul Triple H Levesque has not ruled out a return for Lesnar when asked about Brock, who remains listed on the WWE website roster page. While it was reported months ago that Lesnar was added back to the roster page, that was not the case, as he was never removed in the first place. With that said, Lesnar was removed from being a playable character in WWE 2K24, which came out back in March, and we now have an update on the Beast Incarnate. When Fightful Select asked whether Lesnar has been in talks with WWE and whether a return was on the card, the notion was shut down by high-level sources, with one stating, "There are no creative plans in place for Lesnar, and if conversations have occurred, we've not been briefed on that." The report adds that a specific rule over the past few months is that Lesnar would not be brought up in video packages or mentioned in promos or on commentary if it can be avoided. With this rule in place, it makes Lesnar being alluded to twice on Raw all the more strange, and a source in creative said they've not heard any update on Brock's WWE status in months. They added that they'd be surprised if he was brought back while the federal investigation into McMahon and WWE that is separate to Grant's lawsuit is ongoing. We'll keep you posted with any further updates about Lesnar that aren't just the unsubstantiated rumors and claims that periodically do the rounds on social media. During last week's SmackDown, Kevin Owens continued his heel turn with a parking lot assault on Randy Orton, mere days after the same fate befell Cody Rhodes at Bad Blood. Now, WWE's official Twitter account has shared a video of Orton during a recent live event in which he sent a warning to his former friend and tag partner. He said, "Hey Owens, once I get back to the States, once I get back across the pond, I'm coming for you, and I'm whipping your ass. You got one coming." Bryan Alvarez has reported that WWE is planning a shoot-style program and match for Owens and Orton, one that is expected to happen this December at Saturday night's main event. We'll have to wait and see how WWE continues to develop this feud with Owens, Orton, and Rhodes, as their current angle is certainly creating a lot of interest. But what do you think this shoot-style match should look like? What are you expecting from this feud? Share your thoughts down in the comments section. Now, in an interview with the Metro UK in May, Kevin Owens shared that his current WWE deal will expire in early 2025, but fans can expect the prize fighter on the roster for years to come. In an update, WrestleVote said that Owens is very close to signing a new deal with WWE if it hasn't already happened, and said that Owens will be around for the long haul. With no specific length given, WrestleVote's comments suggest this will be a multi-year deal, as Owens has plans on being a WWE superstar for a long time yet. Over to Dynamite, as new world champion Jon Moxley and his faction put the entire locker room on notice this week following his title victory at WrestleDream. That win also saw the end of Bryan Danielson's full-time career, with fans in Tacoma leaving the arena in shock as Moxley and co. brutally attacked the American Dragon. Ahead of Dynamite, AEW stated that nobody was safe from Moxley, who opened the show with a video package in which he hated what AEW had become over the years. Much of Moxley's promo leaned into the real controversial happenings within AEW over the last year or so, and it was an interesting move for AEW to use its real problems in this way. Moxley added that the entire roster now works for him, and he made his presence felt on Dynamite during a six-man tag later in the show. The Elite's Kazuchika Okada and Young Bucks wrestled conglomerations Kyle O'Reilly, Rocky Romero, and Orange Cassidy, which was disrupted when Moxley's group attacked Cassidy. The EVP and Okada took a back foot and became spectators to the carnage, and other wrestlers who tried to resist Moxley's group were swiftly outnumbered. Top Flight and Dark Order were brutally decimated before Moxley declared that anybody who was associated with the company was now under attack, declaring war against the roster. It seems like Orange Cassidy could be Jon Moxley's next challenger, as the attack was majorly targeted on the freshly squeezed tonight, even though many had predicted Darby Allin. Often touted as a future world champion, Allin was absent from Dynamite, and Excalibur said that Allin was basically unreachable after what transpired at the end of WrestleDream. Are you liking this booking of Jon Moxley or not? Who do you think this faction will target next as part of their war with AEW? Sound off in the comments below. Adam Cole was on Dynamite to cut his first promo since Double or Nothing in May, and rather than the usual talk about returning from injury, started by addressing MJF directly. Cole said MJF had shown everyone who he truly is and that the locker room agreed with his sentiments that he hates MJF with every fiber of his being. Addressing his own heel turn in late 2023, Cole said he was fighting evil with evil, but said he wasn't finished yet, as he and his former tag partner would eventually clash in the ring. Cole also called MJF a phony, saying he shows a fake attitude to the world, but in reality, the former world champion is a scared, insecure little boy. Shelton Benjamin made his AEW in-ring debut this week against Lio Rush, another former WWE superstar who has ended up in the land of the All Elite. This was an impressive debut for Shelton on AEW TV, but Lio Rush put up an incredible fight despite being outmatched by the gold standard in height and size. Rush landed some good moves, including a tornado DDT that took Shelton down, but it was a huge suplex and exploder power slam that got the gold standard the clean win. This was a big start for Shelton Benjamin in AEW, and MVP added insult to injury after the match by shoving a business card in Rush's pants before grabbing the mic. Dubbing Benjamin the standard of excellence, MVP called out Swerve Strickland, who he implored to reconsider his decision to not side with him that Swerve made at WrestleDream. MVP wants Swerve to reconsider lest Benjamin flatten the former AEW champion as well, but shortly after, a match was confirmed for Strickland and Benjamin for Dynamite Fright Night. That will be held in Cleveland on October 30th, and later in the show, Renee Paquette caught up with Strickland, who seemed unfazed by the situation. Strickland stood by his decision to turn them down and acknowledged Shelton's in-ring debut before claiming that he was ready should they bring the fight to him next. Swerve wished to remind them that he was still the most dangerous man on the roster, and he was not to be taken lightly, and said he was ready to face Shelton anytime, anywhere. Prior to Shelton's match, the Acclaimed were seen backstage talking about them pulling off another pay-per-view win over MXM Collection, and said they were training for what's next. MVP suddenly appeared to offer Bowens and Caster his services, and also gave them his business card, but they too, however, turned him down. As of now, only Shelton Benjamin has revealed to be MVP's business partner, though Bobby Lashley is reported to be on the way to making his AEW debut very soon. It remains to be seen at this point whether they decide to enlist more members to their faction, but MVP is certainly keeping his eye on many names on the AEW roster. What do you think of plans for Strickland versus Benjamin at Fright Night? Will this be the show Lashley debuts on, costing Swerve the match? Share your thoughts in the comments. We mentioned that the Acclaim turned down the services of MVP as a manager, and while the group did turn him down on the surface, a major heel turn could be in the works. Eagle-eyed fans spotted that despite the group turning the offer down, Max Caster was seen pocketing the card, teasing that he could be considering taking MVP up on his offer. Caster and Anthony Bowens have been allies for years at AEW and are former tag team and trios champions with Billy Gunn, so a split of the Acclaimed would be a huge deal. It remains to be seen whether Caster's days teaming with Bowens are coming to an end, but if they are, MVP would be more than happy to welcome the best wrestler alive into the fold. On Dynamite, the Don Callis family held a press conference without any press to introduce Brian Cage and Lance Archer as the newest members. Hangman Adam Page planted the seeds for the next phase of his rivalry with Jay White during the main event of this week's edition of Dynamite. Earlier this year, in the semi-final round of the 2024 Owen Hart Cup, Adam Page beat Jay White on Collision to advance one step closer to an AEW World title shot. This win came about thanks to interference from Christian Cage, and since then, the Switchblade has named Page and Cage the two men on his revenge hit list. White kept his word as he defeated the Cowboy at WrestleDream, and on Dynamite, he took on the other man who disrupted his world championship journey, Christian Cage. Juice Robinson and Colton Gunn were ejected from ringside after Nick Wayne set them up to get caught with a chair in a smart move by the young wrestler. Cage and Switchblade had a good competitive match that did plenty to establish White as a babyface, and the crowd loved him using the Patriarchy leader's turtlenecks against him. In the closing moments, White had Cage set up for a Blade Runner, but the referee was distracted by the interfering Kip Sabian, which allowed Hangman to hit a buckshot lariat on Jay. This allowed for Cage to make a cover and pick up the win, and it remains to be seen how Jay White will retaliate against the Cowboy as their feud continues to develop in AEW. At WrestleDream, Bryan Danielson lost the AEW World title, and during his title reign, said his full-time career in the ring would end once he lost the gold. On Fightful's weekly Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp provided an update on Bryan Danielson's in-ring status, sharing that there's no definitive plans for Danielson to return to wrestling. With that in mind, the door isn't closed, but his focus is on his family and addressing his neck issues at this time before looking at an in-ring return. While Danielson has expressed interest in returning in some form, the seriousness of his physical condition would become clearer as he wrapped up his recent appearances. Despite this, AEW has continued to use full-time language about him on television, and fans will have to wait and see how long Bryan Danielson will be off AEW television. Danielson shared before All In that he expects to have neck surgery at some point in 2024, and if so, it's likely that his recovery will keep him out of action for quite some time. Are you looking forward to Bryan Danielson's in-ring return somewhere down the line? Let us know in the comments section below. More from WWE's event in Manchester now as Nia Jax retained her women's title against Bayley, and the match saw interference from Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. On Twitter, fans shared clips of one particular spot that saw Stratton attack the role model, all while Jax kept referee Dan Engler, aka Rudy Charles, at bay as he was wrapped up in tape. Jax continued her attack by booting the ref from the ring, and on Twitter, a fan joked that Nia didn't use enough tape, and Jax replied that she was sick of Rudy trying to ruin her fun. While Jax retained her title, she needed, or likely demanded, to be carried out of the ring by Rudy, who after struggling, dropped Jax on the floor before collapsing shortly after. In another tweet, Jax said that Rudy was so rude, adding that she's so skinny as well, and this was a hilarious spot for the crowd in Manchester to see. In Janelle Grant's lawsuit, she alleges that Vince McMahon trafficked her to numerous individuals in WWE, including former head of talent relations John Laurinaitis. Laurinaitis has since claimed that he was a victim in this lawsuit, not the perpetrator, and now there has been a major update about the former Raw and SmackDown general manager. During the Nikki and Brie Show podcast, it was shared that Kathy Colace, the mother of the twins, has divorced Laurinaitis over 7 years after marrying in March 2016. Brie was the one who shared the news, albeit with her mother's permission, and added that Kathy isn't ready to mingle as she's enjoying her independent time right now. This is a huge update on Laurinaitis, who has remained quiet for the most part on this lawsuit, and whatever comes next, his marriage to Kathy Colace is now a thing of the past. Queen Aminata had one of her biggest matches to date this week when she challenged Mercedes Moné for the TBS Championship and took control almost immediately with her size and power. Camille provided the distraction that allowed Moné to take control, and this bout had a steady pace and didn't feel rushed, and both women took time to sell and taunt. At times, it felt like a quicker pace would have served them well, and in the end, Aminata ended up tapping out to the Statement Maker, formerly known as the Bank Statement in WWE. While it was nice to see a mostly clean title defense, it felt like this match was missing the sense of urgency you need in a title bout, as neither woman was in any hurry to get the win. Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood took on Big Bill and Brian Keith in the opening bout, with the Bounty Hunter and Harwood beginning with a furious exchange before Cash came in. Momentum shifted when Big Bill got the tag, and he used his size and strength to dominate his opponents, while Keith focused on wearing them down. This was a pretty solid tag match that didn't lean too heavily on double team offense, and after both teams looked good, FTR won shortly after the break with the Shatter Machine. After the match, the Outrunners came out and had a funny handshake segment, and while this wasn't the result Bill and Keith wanted, Chris Jericho had plans of his own on Dynamite. In a video segment before the tag match, Jericho accused Mark Briscoe of cheating in their ROH World title bout at WrestleDream and demanded a rematch with the title on the line. In a backstage interview, Briscoe accepted the challenge for next week's Dynamite, but declared that the match would be a ladder war for the ROH World title. More from Manchester as the show featured WWE Champion Cody Rhodes and World Heavyweight Champion Gunther, as well as another top champion from outside WWE. During a segment with Rhodes and Gunther, UFC interim heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall made his way to the ring, following John Bones Jones. Aspinall, who is from Manchester, got a huge pop in his hometown, and his appearance added excitement to the much-anticipated Crown Jewel title match set for next month. Aspinall's involvement last night only highlights the bonds of WWE and UFC under TKO, and gave the crowd a huge moment, one they certainly won't forget anytime soon. Now, Jey Uso is no longer part of the bloodline, but during a WWE live event in Newcastle, England, he borrowed a move straight from the playbook of The Rock. Removing his armband, Uso hit the yeet elbow on Braun Breaker during their Intercontinental title match, and we'll have to see if this move makes it to TV. On the September 9th Raw, Bret Hart made a rare appearance for WWE, and to no one's surprise, the two-time Hall of Famer got a huge ovation in Calgary. While speaking to the Wrestling Classic podcast, Bret Hart was asked about his appearance and shared that he only found out about the plans 4 or 5 days ahead of the show. Bret was asked, and after considering what else am I doing, he agreed to appear, adding that it was really special for him as it's been a long time since he was in front of a Calgary crowd. That segment saw Bret interrupted by Gunther, who taunted the Hitman by declaring that Bret is his second favorite wrestler of all time, behind Bill Goldberg. Addressing Gunther's comment, Bret simply joked that Goldberg got off light, as Bret likely had plenty he wanted to say about the man he's blamed for decades for ending his career. At Bad Blood, Gunther admitted he lied about his Goldberg fandom just to mess with Bret, but despite this, the Hitman clearly had a blast appearing on Raw in Calgary. Back to AEW Dynamite, and it wasn't just the Acclaimed who had a split teased on the show, as Private Party could also have their days numbered as a unit. In a backstage interview, which also included the Young Bucks, Zay and Quen spoke about how close they got to becoming the tag team champions at WrestleDream and asked for another shot. While the Bucks acknowledged the team's performance and growth, they refused to put the titles on the line again, and Stokely Hathaway would arrive to stir the pot. Hathaway berated Private Party for the WrestleDream loss and for not accepting his managerial services before that, and said they should split the next time they fail to win the gold. He also claimed that Cassidy could break out as a single star in the event of such a split, and Quen seemed visibly upset at the insinuation, possibly teasing tensions within the team. Private Party have been competing in AEW since the company was formed, but if this segment is a sign of things to come, it may be a matter of time before Quen and Zay go their different ways. Last time Dalton Castle competed, it was on the July 10th Collision, and this week, Castle revealed in an interview with Allison Rosen is your new best friend that he is injured. Castle shared that he tore his bicep and is undergoing physical therapy before predicting that he'll be back in January 2025, and we are wishing him a full and speedy recovery. This year, WWE held its King and Queen of the Ring event 1 year after it was supposed to happen in May 2023, as that show was changed to be Night of Champions instead. Night of Champions saw Seth Rollins become World Heavyweight Champion and Roman Reigns reach 1,000 days in his reign, but the decision to change didn't solely come from WWE. On his Wrestling Mat podcast, former WWE host Matt Camp claimed that the Saudis pushed for the change and that the return of the tournament wasn't seen as big enough. Camp reflected on previous Saudi requests, such as requesting wrestlers like the Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna for the Greatest Royal Rumble years after both men had passed away. Camp also speculated on whether the newly introduced Crown Jewel Championship was another Saudi call in an effort to make their annual event bigger than any other PLE. No other PLE has its own championship, and Crown Jewel 2024 will be historic for that, and the men's and women's titles may be a concept that didn't come from WWE themselves. And we're ending with Lexis King, who has chosen not to use his Brian Pillman Jr. birth name as he wants to forge his own legacy, but that doesn't mean he doesn't appreciate his late father. On Twitter, King shared that seeing his father inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame is all he's ever wanted, adding that his father has a rightful spot waiting for him. The loose cannon saw success in the ring and out of WWE, and would you like to see him be inducted by his son? Share your thoughts in the comments section.